Hey, good morning, everyone. It's great to be back. So, a number of you probably were here last year when I spoke, so I thought what I would do is just refer back to that speech and give you an update on a year of what I can think of as huge progress, and talk a little bit about what we've been doing in the last year from a technology point of view, and give you a little bit of insight into how we see things going forward. But to start, why don't I just remind everyone what our goal is with the whole technology modernization program. And to do that, I'll quote from President Trump at the CEO summit that we had just over a year ago. And in his words, our goal is to lead a sweeping transformation of the federal government's technology that will deliver dramatically better services for citizens. So just remember that what we're trying to do is an IT modernization program, but it has the citizen at the heart of it. Everything that we are doing is to make citizens' lives better. Yes, we want to save money. Yes, we want to make the government more efficient. But at the end of the day, the determinant of whether we have been successful is whether we impact literally millions of people's lives. And those of you who were here last year heard me talk. If we can make millions or potentially hundreds of millions of people's lives 5, 10, 15% better by improving the services, then that will be a fantastic achievement for this administration and for this program. So to do that, you have to look at get a sense of the scale of what we're trying to achieve. And again, I referred to this last year, but I'd just like to reiterate, to achieve the objective and the goal that the President set, we need to carry out the largest enterprise transformation ever attempted. And I can say that because I've worked in a number of large-scale organizations. I have been involved in enterprise transformations that involve hundreds of thousands of people, but this one involves millions of people. So we have over 2 million non-military employees in the government. That's more than 20 times some of the companies that I've worked for, even though they're pretty large. We have 330 million customers, being every citizen in the country. We have roughly a $100 billion budget, which is larger than virtually any enterprise organization. And we've been historically very decentralized and uncoordinated from a central point of view. No large organization would run it as decentralized as the US government does. And a lot of you will know this, most of our technology is outdated, in some cases 10 to 20 years out of date. And again, I talked last year about the fact that it's not that we haven't made progress over the last few years. Plenty of progress has been made and plenty of extremely good things have been done, but the rate of change in the US government has been lower than the rate of change in the private sector. So if anything, the government has fallen behind, even though it's done some extremely good initiatives. So given that context, I talked a year ago about how we would approach it, and I want to talk about what's happened in that year in terms of the approach, because the approach hasn't changed. And that approach consists of three main sort of pillars. Firstly, build institutional capability. This is not going to be solved in 1 year or 2 years. This is going to be a multi-year initiative. And one of the things that we talk about and take pride in is if it's not going to be just for this administration, but future administrations. If we can set the platform for future administrations and pass the baton over to them and they can build on the work that we're doing, we'll be very proud of that. So this is a very bipartisan for the country initiative where we want to have a very long-term approach, and we need to create institutional capability rather than just a series of discrete projects. So that's sort of number one. Number two is get some great people into key positions, and I'll talk about some of those, but we've made great progress on that. And number three is build momentum into the system to get results and get some early wins. So we need to create long-term change capability, but we can't think of this as we're only going to get results in 3, 4, 5 years. We need to get results straight away. So I'll talk a little bit about that over the last year. But that approach will be the same approach we will take next year and the year after and the year after that. And every year we will simply build on the foundations and progress of the previous year. So to talk about building institutional change capability, what have we actually done there? I talked specifically last year about this concept of setting up centers of excellence, and that's probably one of the things that I am most delighted about over the last year, that's gone from a concept to a reality. And I pay a lot of credit to Joanne Collins-Schmee, who I'll mention on the people side, who's been the leader in that effort, but there's been a lot of other people who've contributed to setting up these centres of excellence. It's now alive and well. It sits inside GSA as part of TTS. It has one large-scale client, US Department of Agriculture, and they are doing real work, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the results. But the Centres of Excellence has been set up. It has 5 pillars around data center consolidation, call centers of the future, customer service, analytics, and cloud migration. So 5 fundamentally important parts of any enterprise transformation. They now have these Centres of Excellence, and the whole idea with the Centres of Excellence is to not only do things for individual projects, so for USDA, but to create expertise that can be carried over to the next agency, the following agency, do 2, do 4, do 8. And that's what you do inside any large enterprise, is build knowledge and expertise that can be replicated multiple times, and hence you get scalability. So they've set those up, they have people, they have one client, they're working away, and there has been absolutely fabulous progress over the last year. So that's sort of one very big pillar of the sort of institutional side of things. Another one is a lot of the initiatives have been rolled into the President's management agenda. So those of you who've seen that, see that people development, large-scale sort of data platforms, and IT modernization. A lot of the initiatives that we talked about have been built in by OMB into the President's management agenda. So they're not just driven from areas like the Office of American Innovation, where I used to be based, but they're actually centrally based inside a framework that is government-wide and will be multiple years. So that's another area. Again, you probably saw the executive order on CIO effectiveness that the President signed a few months ago. That's really giving FTARA teeth. So FTARA, the legislation exists, but what we found when we came in is that very few agencies were really focused on it, in particular on the CIO effectiveness. And one of the things that I observed coming in from the private sector is how decentralized. So even inside individual agencies, there would be multiple CIOs who essentially did their own thing. That isn't effective. We need to be much more centralized and coordinated inside agencies and across the whole government, and the executive order really gives teeth to some of those FTARA initiatives. We issued a Modernizing Government IT report with 50 multi-agency recommendations late last year. A number of people in the room and outside from the private sector contributed significantly to that report. Virtually all of those 50 recommendations have been complete now. There's just a couple outstanding. So Suzette Kent, the federal CIO, has been incredibly rigorous about following up on that report and every one of the recommendations. And again, that's given us a tremendous base for the future. So there are other smaller initiatives that have happened, but some of the key planks that I think will give us long-term change capability have been set up in the last year and have been given life. So I give us a lot of, a big sort of pass mark there. In terms of key people, also great progress on that side. If you start with OMB, Margaret Weikart has come in as Deputy Director of OMB. She is really focused on a number of these initiatives as well as her broader portfolio. She's really picked up some of this and, as I say, built it into the President's management agenda and showing real leadership from an OMB perspective. She appointed Suzette Kent, the federal CIO, who is also, as I say, taking a real leadership role, driving some of the initiatives, not only in terms of the report that I just mentioned, but also CIO effectiveness. So she's really been a huge burst of new energy. So on that side of it's great. Then on the TTS side, in the Centres of Excellence, Emily Murphy has been appointed as head of GSA, and she's really elevated the role of TTS, and again, personally committed to a lot of the initiatives there and really helped make that Centres of Excellence concept a reality. And then Joanne, who I mentioned before, also who unfortunately is leaving us after a year of duty, but has been absolutely fabulous in taking the concept of the Centres of Excellence and making it a reality, making it a real business. And you'll notice that it's fantastic from my point of view that, you know, 4 of the top people involved in really pushing the program forward are women. So yeah, we have got a tremendous representation from a female point of view in senior IT leadership roles in the government. Other people, just to note, Matt Cutts, I just recognize him. He came in from the previous administration running USDS, has just been a fabulous contributor and continues to be an outstanding leader with USDS and doing their initiatives. And then we've had lots of others. We've had some great appointments at the CIO level and at lower levels as well. So our bench strength, I would say, is significantly higher a year on from where it was last year. We still have some roles to fill. We need to replace Joanne with a new leader who's going to take the Centres of Excellence to the next level. We're just recruiting people at the moment, and we've already got a fabulous shortlist for that. And people are really excited about how they can take what Joanne has created as a platform and take it to an even bigger level. You can expect a pretty good announcement there in terms of a replacement for Joanne. So in terms of people in key positions, lots of great progress. Essentially all of the major positions are now filled other than Joanne, who will be, and then that's trickling down. Those great people are attracting other great people. And so from a people point of view, they're going to make, I can help with the framework, but they're the people who actually really do all the work. So we're seeing great progress there. And then getting some momentum into the system and getting some early wins. You probably heard me talk about it. We had weekly meetings with over 40 people in the middle of last year with multiple groups over sort of 90 days, building alignment. And I think one of the things that really paid off as a result of that is all of the aspects that I have been talking about in the last few minutes were built into a program where I think you would see a high degree of alignment, certainly amongst the senior people that I mentioned and filtering down through the organizations. Those weekly meetings continue, even though I have a new role. We've continued them just to continue alignment at a senior level, and I'm really happy that that's really built some energy around the specific initiatives. USDA, I mentioned as the sort of lighthouse agency for the Centres of Excellence. They've had some real progress already. They've issued a number of contracts for specific areas of work, but they've also done initial initiatives like they've consolidated 20 data centers down to 2. They've consolidated all of the reporting into one CIO, and they're really just, I think, in particular because of the leadership of Secretary Perdue, but also Gary Washington, who's the CIO, they are really committed to a top-to-bottom enterprise transformation, and that's the right attitude to go in with these. This is not just an IT transformation, this is a true enterprise transformation enabled by TTS and the Centres of Excellence. But you have 2 leaders there who are really driving change inside that, and what we're doing is documenting a lot of that so that we will use it for subsequent agencies. And in fact, we're in the final stages of choosing the second lighthouse agency, which should be in the next few weeks. And we're basically going to pick up a lot of the expertise and knowledge from that first agency and do it. So that concept is starting to really prove out. The MGT Act passed, and as a result of that, we have some funds appropriated, which a number of which have been issued to projects. So that, I think, was a great win over the last year to get that across the line, to give some money and to create not only just the concept of working capital at a central level, but working capitals inside agencies. So the central funds are fantastic, but the concept of allowing agencies to roll over money in working funds so they can get out of this spiral they're in where they have to spend all of their money on operating and not have the capital to invest. The MGT Act was incredibly useful for that as well. So that was another great win over the last year. And then Blue Button, I mentioned, we had a Blue Button conference a few weeks ago, so some great things going on in HHS. USDS really leading the charge there, as it is across a number of agencies. VA is doing some tremendous things for veterans. SBA is doing some wonderful new initiatives from a customer service point of view. So individual agencies continue to have great victories while we are building this long-term capability in the COEs. I have been very, very happy with the amount of progress we've had across an aligned program. So those are some of the sort of get the momentum in the system, recognize the results, and use that to really continue the energy. So looking forward to the next year, it's going to be more of the same. If I come back here in a year's time, I would hope that I will tell you exactly the same themes, exactly the same approach. And the whole idea with these long-term programs is you have to stay the course. You have to set a broad vision. You have to have a platform that is going to be sustainable, but you have to keep coming back year after year after year after year and delivering. This won't happen in 1 year. It won't happen in 2 years. I hope that we are setting the platform and base for a 5, 10, 15-year transformation of the government. And if we can do that, we can not only catch up to where the private sector is, but change the slope of innovation inside the government so that when we get to the stage where services for citizens through the government are as good as those provided by the private sector, our rate of innovation that will always be the same. And if we have achieved that, and if we create the base for that over the next few years, that will be a tremendous legacy for this government. So I'll be delighted to come back in a year and report on more progress. You'll hear very similar themes, but I know a number of you in the audience are actually the people who are doing the work, so thank you to those people. Thank you to the private sector and other people who contribute and make this happen. I think it's been a tremendous year, and I'm very much looking forward to next year. Thank you.